name's Marty and welcome to this video series on building your own SG guitar kit from Guitar Kit World. In the following video, I'm going to show you how I put together this project guitar. I'm going to look at all aspects of the build, including finishing, installing hardware, connecting the electronics, and then doing a final setup. So the guitar we're working with today is an SG guitar kit. We've got a mahogany body, quilted maple veneer top, mahogany neck with ebony fretboard, mother of pearl, trapezoid inlays. We've got a neck and bridge humbucker, 2 volume and 2 tone, and of course a tune-o-matic style bridge. So from here, I'm going to take the video back to the very start of the build, and we'll start the project by inspecting the body and looking for any problems. Okay, so from here we'll quickly inspect the body. At this stage I'm just looking for major defects, so major dents that might require filling, deep scratches, things we need to repair before we start the project. I'm also looking for glue stains, things that might prevent our finish from absorbing into the timber. You'll often see them around the base of the body. I can see a few on the sides of the guitar here, which we'll come back to later, but for the most part I think we're in pretty good shape.
Next thing we need to do is dry fit the neck. As I already mentioned, we dry fit the neck so we can check the neck alignment, check the neck angle, and also check the scale length of the guitar. So first things first, we need to put the neck into the neck cavity. Insert the neck heel in first and then gently push down. Make sure the neck's all the way in and all the way up towards the back of the neck pocket. Next thing you want to do is measure the scale length. So what you normally do for that is measure where the bridge would normally sit to the nut. Now on a SG style guitar kit, that should be 628mm or 24.75 inches. And the next thing we want to do is check the neck alignment. Now this is a really tight fitting neck, so I won't have any concerns there, but what I'd normally recommend doing if you have a loose fitting neck is to measure center on your neck itself, on the neck heel, and make a center point between the 2 pre-drilled holes for the bridge. Draw a line and make sure they line up perfectly. If you don't have pre-drilled holes on your bridge, one thing you can do is clamp 2 straight edges of timber and then measure, have a ruler underneath there before you clamp, find center, test fit the angle of the bridge. All we need to do, loosely fit those bridge posts, fit the bridge, and just ensure our string height is going to be more or less aligned with the bridge or sitting a little bit above it, which this one appears to be fine. Now we've dry fit the neck and check for any issues there, we can permanently set the neck. Just clean out the neck cavity using a small brush. Just make sure there's no dust, sawdust, anything like that caught up in there. And just check the back of the neck as well, the heel. Now using PVA or a similar product and just using a brush, apply the glue so that we get a nice even coating of glue. Then apply some to the heel. Just as when we dry fit the neck, push the end of the heel in first into the neck cavity, push down, and then push the entire neck into place.
Taking 2 clamps, clamp to the heel of the neck and the underside of the body. And check the manufacturer's label of the product you're using. In most cases, you can safely remove the clamps after 24 hours.
Okay, so we've got the SG guitar kit up on the bench now. Now, this SG kit has no binding on the neck or the body, so much less chance of there being any issues with glue. But having said all of that, we will still inspect the body fairly carefully. The veneer is glued on, obviously, so there could be some issues around the edges. We'll have a look. So just inspecting the guitar here, I can definitely see some glue here. It looks like the veneer's lifted and it's been repaired, so we'll need to address that. Small amount of glue around here as well. Looks like there's been a crack repaired here as well. We'll need to have a look at. Otherwise, the guitar itself looks good. Beautiful quilted veneer top on this one. Okay, so we've identified a couple of areas with glue. So you can see around this top horn here, for instance. So I'm going to give that a bit of a sand now and try not to apply too much pressure because the veneers are quite thin on the edges of these guitars. The idea there is just to remove any any marks left by the coarser grade sandpaper that we've used before. Just give the guitar a wipe down. And finally, just clean up the actual work area. So remove any dust from the work area also. So before we stain, a couple of things we need to do. We need to protect the fretboard and protect the electronics cavity at the back and the pickup cavities at the front. So what we'll do is apply some masking tape. We'll start with the electronics cavity at the back here. Okay, so we'll start by applying some mahogany, and what I want to do first obviously is do the top and try and get that nice figured grain covered nicely, and then we'll work our way around the sides and finally the back. Now I've mixed up my natural grain fill. It's a water-based product. I've mixed it up at about an additional 20% water to the product. What you really want to do is start applying your grain fill, working across, or working with the grain first, sorry. You see that's really getting in there now. And then across the grain. So you're really working into those pores. Given the SG several hours to dry and that grain filler to dry off, next job is to sand away the excess grain filler that's left. So after about 20 minutes, I did come along with a damp rag and start to wipe away any excess, which helps reduce the amount of sanding, but we still have some, you can probably see this grey film sitting on the surface here that we really need to remove. Now when you're sanding grain fill, we really need to just sand level to the surface of the wood. With sanding, I used to sand a lot finer grit at this stage, but these days I generally start with a heavier grit. So start with a 120 grit, work my way up to 180 and then on to 220. What I've found is it's pretty important not to jump between the grades of paper too much, or your finer grade paper is going to have too much work to do. It'll clog up, or you'll just have to push or work the paper too hard, so it'll be too much work, or you'll go through too much paper. So it's pretty important to go from or use three different stages of sanding paper at this point. Okay, so I've got most of that excess removed now. I've only sanded using the 120 grit at this point. So I'll follow up next with the 180, which will remove the scratch marks left from the 120, and then the 220 to remove the scratch marks left from the 180. So I'm really using a low grit paper to remove the grain fill, and then the remaining grades just to tidy up. So if I bring the guitar up nice and close, you should see, hopefully you can see that those grains are filled now, those pores. I've sanded back a lot of that stain off the top, the sides and the back as well. And what I want to do is try and blend another stain with it. I'm just going to apply this to the top as we start. So as per usual, I've got a clean rag. I'm just folding in the edges so that we don't deal with any frayed edges that may leave fibers on the guitar. And we'll be good to go from there. So again, I'm just going to dip a cloth in this diluted teak, golden teak, sorry, and just start applying. We'll let that soak, and I'll come back in about 10 minutes, I'd say, and just wipe away any excess. Next thing I want to do with the SG is stain the neck slightly. So I just want to give it a very light, similar colour to the body, but much lighter. So I've mixed this down quite a bit, just put it on a sample piece. It's about the colour I wanted. So something a little brighter, but also a little bit lighter. So we've grain filled the back of this neck, as shown in a previous video. So from here, this should take stain quite well. What I thought I'd do is apply a fine buffing oil, which is a combination of tung oil and wax. And what will happen there is the tung oil will absorb into the timber, and the wax will then sit on the outside, and we can build up those wax layers into something we can polish into a semi-gloss. And I'll just load up my rag, and it's really the same process as staining. We're just dragging that through, and you can see See some of that wax that's formulated in the mix there. So I'll be looking to wipe any of that off. And that's really all there is to it. So I would come back about 10 minutes later and just remove any excess with a clean rag, just any excess that hasn't absorbed in, obviously, and then I'd leave it to dry. Just follow the recommendations on the product you're using, but I'm sure it'll be quite similar. Okay, so one of the very last jobs we need to do with our SG guitar kit with regard to finishing is sealing this neck. So finishing guitar necks is a little different to finishing guitar bodies. For one, our hands are all over the neck, so there's a lot of oils and dirt and gunk basically that can transfer from our hands onto the neck. And the second thing is we want the neck to be able to play fast. So if you have a thick glossy finish on the back of the neck, your fingers are going to drag a little bit while you play. So what you really want to do is apply a very light finish to the back, something that will seal it, and then also buff it out to a matte finish, which is generally not going to cause as much friction between your hands and the neck itself. So I'm just putting an oil finish on this. You could tongue oil or true oil is another good option that finishes really nicely, and linseed oil would also be another good option. So really any of those will be fine. You're looking to seal it but without leaving a lot of material on the neck. So hopefully that's useful. Okay, so we've let that oil wax combination finish dry for about 6 hours on this SG guitar body. As I said before, it's a combination product. It's a mix of tongue oil and beeswax. The tongue oil obviously sinks into the timber and the wax sits on top and offers a protective surface that we can buff out. What I normally recommend to do is just take a clean rag. And we're going to be pressing fairly hard and also working in a circular motion, so definitely check your rag, make sure there's nothing in there that could be abrasive to the finish. Really from there, all we're really doing is picking a section and just same as we'd polish a car. As I said, it really comes down to how long you spend, but you can already see that starting to shine up there, and that's pretty much the goal of what we're trying to do. So